I'm Brian. At 58, doctors told me I had the heart of a 37-year-old man. They told me that after my heart transplant surgery. If you're a smoker, here are some tips in case that happens to you. First, you have to quit smoking before you can get on a list for a transplant. So quit now. And never feel sorry for yourself. I don't. I only feel sorry for that 37-year-old man.
Developed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. For help quitting, call 866-QUIT-YES or visit quityes.org.
This hour of programming is brought to you in part by your membership contributions and by Arnie's Sandwiches, offering deli sandwiches, soups, and salads daily, including the Macho Man Marvel, Bosque del Bomber, and a selection of gluten-free options. Catering with lunch boxes, sandwich trays, and party subs also available. Arnie's Sandwiches, open every day from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 2031 South Illinois Avenue for dine-in, carry-out, or delivery. 529-4300.
Did you know that America's 20 richest people own more wealth than the bottom half of Americans combined?
Yes, and they also own our legislators and most of our media. As Louis Brandeis warned, we can either have democracy in this country or we can have great wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we can't have both.
Most media, because it's corporate-owned, won't talk about the class divide in the United States, but we do.
We analyze current events on Class Matters every Monday morning from 10:30 to 11.
We discuss matters of class because class matters.
Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Good Monday morning. The time is 10:03 a.m. You're listening to WDBX FM Carbondale. This is the show, Talk of the Town. I'm your host, Amy Fox, with the City of Carbondale, and I'm joined in studio this morning by Steve Quinn with Northbridge Professional Technologies. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Good morning, Amy. Thanks for having me.
And we are in the heart of the holiday shopping season. So as things have kind of evolved over the last several years, more and more people are taking care of their shopping online. But there are some big tips that people need to keep in the back of their minds as they continue to do their holiday shopping.
Sure. Absolutely. In fact, the survey said that 86% of consumers will buy at least one item online this shopping season. And it's about $125 billion online sales. That's a lot of sales.
Right. And, you know, people get in the rush and they're putting in their card number and maybe they're not paying attention to the site that they're on because there's a lot of things that people can take, a lot of personal information that someone can take.
Right.
And you can have a lot of problems down the road.
Yeah. Last year, the FBI received around 300,000 complaints last year of online theft of some kind. Either someone used someone's credit card, or they intercepted a purchase, and it was about a loss of about $1.4 billion. And that's, of course, only the ones that were reported.
And it's really important for people to make sure that they're on a secure website, a secure browser.
Right.
Is one of probably the first steps.
Absolutely. Definitely want to shop at sites that you trust. And in sites that are verified. And the way to tell that's super easy. Like you said, though, sometimes we're in a rush and we don't take time to look, but it's really easy. On your browser, when you look at the very top, there's an address bar that lists where you are. It'll have the www in it. And at the very beginning of that line, it's either going to say HTTP or HTTPS. And the S is really important because that means that the owners of that site have paid to have that site verified. So that's a secure site. And that's you'd never want to put your credit card information into a site that doesn't have HTTPS at the beginning.
And another thing, a lot of people are doing their shopping on cell phones, so it may be courtesy of an app.
Right.
And I'm sure there's some important information before you go and download a particular shopping app
to
make sure it is a legitimate store.
Yeah, I mean, People shop online for two main reasons. One is convenience, and the other is variety. And nothing beats the convenience of just pulling out your phone and hitting a button on an app and ordering something. But the same goes for apps as goes for websites. You want to make sure that it's an app for a site that you already trust. So the app is an app, and it has a site, just like your Amazon shopping app on your phone has an Amazon website. So you definitely want to make sure you trust the site before you get the app.
And it doesn't take you too long, or you don't have to do very much shopping to find an ad, whether it's on social media, whether it's actually on a shopping website.
Sure.
But those ads seem to be everywhere nowadays.
Right. And isn't it amazing, like if you buy something online, how the next day or even sooner you're seeing ads for that very thing, because all of that information is shared.
And the one thing that I find on those ads is sometimes they're kind of not a very legitimate website. It seems kind of like spam or somewhere where I wouldn't want to enter my credit card information.
Right. Yeah. So those, you click on those, you could end up anywhere. So my advice is to start with the product that you want or the site that you want that you already trust. Don't start with the ad. Now, you might see an ad for something and go, that gives me an idea of something I can buy for someone. Well, then go back to something you already trust and look for that item rather than just following an ad that's going to take you who knows where.
And also another big question is payment. A lot of people have debit cards. They don't have credit cards.
Right.
What do you recommend as far as payment? I know there's PayPal. That's another option.
Yep, definitely. So, those are the two main options. You can have a debit card or a credit card. Credit cards have the advantage of they typically have more protection, so that if you do become a victim of fraud, that your credit card company is more likely to protect you at a higher level than a debit card would. Obviously, the other big advantage is that debit card is connected directly to your bank account, so that's like some exposure that you don't want, whereas the credit card is not. But if you don't want to get into debt, and that's a great thing, and you do want to use your debit card, then PayPal is a great option. It puts a third party in the middle of that transaction and allows them to verify it, so that your debit card information now is only at PayPal. You're not putting it into lots of different sites. You're letting PayPal handle that transaction for you. So that's a great way to do it if you're using your debit card.
And another thing, public Wi-Fi. That's like opening another can of worms for online shopping.
Yeah, if you happen to be traveling, if you're on public Wi-Fi, here's what I would do if it was me. If I'm traveling and I remember I need to grab this one thing, or I want to look and shop, disconnect from the Wi-Fi and use your data. Now you're not broadcasting that to everybody around you. At least you've given yourself a little bit more protection. So get off the public Wi-Fi, do your shopping, and then get back on. Now, of course, if you're using a laptop, that's obviously more challenging. But if you're still on a secure site, there's ways to get around that, but probably not the best idea to shop while you're on public Wi-Fi.
Whether you're shopping at Walmart or Kohl's or somewhere like that, it seems like once you do one transaction, they automatically store your information in that particular device, that particular site, and that can be kind of alarming, especially if you're sharing your computer or sharing your phone with someone else.
There's almost always a checkbox, though, that says store this information for next time. Leave that unchecked. That way your information is not stored on lots of different sites.
And it just takes a few minutes just to enter your name, your address, your telephone number.
Again, it's convenience, right? It's like it's much more convenient. I'm probably coming back here, but you're leaving your information everywhere, and no one's going to even remember all the places they've put that in. So. And
are there any big cyber trends that you've heard of, you've seen, especially this holiday season?
The latest two email scams that we've seen aren't really related to Christmas, but they are two ones that have come up that are interesting that a lot of people are falling for. And the two of them, real quick, you'll get an email at an office email account from somebody that you know in your office and somebody that is likely to send you a request to do something. And it'll start by saying, hey, are you around, or are you available? I've got a task for you. And, of course, you respond back and say, yeah, sure, what do you need? But what you didn't notice was it might have the correct person's name, but it's not their return address. And then they're going to ask you to go to the store and buy some iTunes gift cards and scratch off the thing on the back. Hopefully at some point in that process, you're going to think, wait a minute. That's one that we've seen a lot. And then the next one that we've seen a lot recently is an email that comes in from somebody that identifies themselves as a hacker. And they said, hey, we've got your information. Here's your username. Here's your password. And that password may actually be right. And they'll say, you're going to send us X amount of dollars to unlock your account. What's important about that is change your password right away. And the fact that they don't actually have any of your data. It's just your information was compromised on another site. They bought that information. Now they're using it to try to get some money from you. So those are the two things that we're seeing a lot right now.
And if someone is a victim of one of those scams, I mean, what are some of the first steps?
Well, you can ignore it, for one thing. I mean, you've got to change your password for sure, but most of those are not legitimately holding on to your information. So don't panic. But if that password is right, then change your password in anywhere you use it. And the more secure your password, the better. It's easy to use your kid's birthday or something, but not a great way because other people can get that information and guess your password as well.
And as far as cyber crimes, cyber scams this time of year, do you think that we as Americans are more aware of these types of things? Or do you think since there are so many people shopping online that there are more of these scams, there are more of these crimes happening?
Sure, definitely there are more. It's more to do with the volume. Because there's such a greater volume of online activity, especially with financial information being placed in different websites, that gives a greater opportunity for those that are looking to exploit that. You do see some scams and different things, but mostly it's going to be, like you had said earlier, an ad that's not legitimate, that's taking you to a site that you shouldn't be at, or that sort of thing. People trying to lure you into making practices. They're kind of banking on the fact that you're not paying attention and that you're not taking the time to really look at what you're doing.
And do you hear of more of these things happening on a cell phone or like a desktop computer?
Well, a lot of it happens through email now. So, but of course, most people access their email on their phone. The phone is not going to give you as much information for you to look at and maybe catch something that doesn't look right. And so you can be a little bit more vulnerable on your phone if that's where you do all of your shopping and all of your activities.
And as we are beginning to wrap up the interview, if someone's just now joining us, we are talking about cybersecurity in the midst of the holiday shopping season. Maybe some of the biggest tips that people need to take away from this interview this morning.
Sure. I think you just have to be diligent. You have to use sites that you trust, be diligent, and use the tools. There's lots of tools available to help you. One quick example is the credit card that I use has an app that goes with it. Any purchase that's made on that card, I instantly get a notification on my phone that says that it's been made, which is really handy. If I'm sitting at home or at the office and I get one of those, that wasn't me. So I can know that right away. And time is important, that you report that quickly and that get your items recovered or your money back.
Great. Lots of good information. And is there anything else you'd like to mention? Maybe I forgot to ask you.
No, I think that hopefully we want people to shop locally, obviously, but a lot of local stores also have online versions as well, so that's great. And but unless you're going locally only and only paying with cash, you are going to need to pay attention to how you shop, and so diligence is the most important thing.
And right when you think you know everything, they go and change something.
Exactly. They're always coming up with new ways to get your money.
Yes, so hopefully everyone stays safe this holiday shopping season. Steve Quinn with Northbridge Professional Technologies, always a pleasure. Look forward to chatting soon.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
And we are going to take a short break and get you some announcements, and we'll be right back.
Good morning. This is Alicia with the City of Carbondale here to bring you this week's calendar of events. On Thursday, December 13, 2018, it's Meet the Mayor. Chat with Carbondale Mayor John Mike Henry and Carbondale City Manager Gary Williams over coffee at Jen's Joe. This event begins at 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And if you have any questions, please call 618-559-1939. On December 15th, 2018, it's Ivis John's 8th annual Blue Christmas, a holiday concert celebrating the music of Southern Illinois. Performers include the Ivis John Band with Tall Paul, the Gordons, Robert Bolin and Will Merring, the Jewels, the Venturas, Free Range Chicks, Shaddy Frick, and more. Tickets are $18 and can be purchased at the Life Community Center or Plaza Records. For more information, please call 618-549-4222. For information on these events and others, please visit our website at wdbx.org or carbondaleTourism.org, or you can reach us by phone at 618-457-3228. Thank you and have a great week.
Good Monday morning to you. You're listening to WDBX 91.1 FM Carbondale, specifically Talk of the Town. I'm Amy Fox, your host, and I'm joined in studio by Dallas Benavie, the Director of Marketing and Community Relations at Centerstone, and John Markley, the CEO at Centerstone. Thank you both for joining me in studio this morning. We're glad to have you here.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having us. Appreciate that.
And first of all, if we have listeners here this morning who aren't familiar with Centerstone, how do you describe this organization?
That's a really good question, Amy. And Centerstone is an agency that encompasses 6 states, and it has 2 national footprints. We are a primary provider for services for wounded warriors. And we also provide emergency services for NFL teams. We're one of only 2 community mental health centers that can go into NFL locker rooms and provide services, emergency services and crisis services for the NFL. And then in the 5 states that we're in, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida, and Georgia are the 6 states that we're in. And we provide mental health, substance abuse, children's services, forensic services for people coming out of correctional centers, and a number of other different services. We serve about 180,000 people a year across that footprint.
Wow. And are you seeing the number of people that you're assisting each and every year continue to rise, or numbers staying about the same?
So it certainly is on the rise because of the barriers to service are being removed in a lot of ways, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that we have to do that. But also, the opioid addiction and crisis that we're having across the country is really driving people to services and becoming more aware. Mental health, first aid training, training teachers, training first responders, and those sort of individuals that recognize that earlier on and for earlier intervention. So yes, we are seeing that. And then just in terms of economy, in terms of people's challenges, we're seeing more demand for those services.
If I can have you scoot up just a little bit closer to the microphone. So you have a primary focus on mental health, addiction treatment, and community education. Why are these services so important, not only to Southern Illinois, but all across the country?
So when you look at mental health and substance abuse, and you look at behavioral health, which is what community mental health centers do, and we are a community mental health center, it is not a primary spend in terms of what healthcare is, but is a driver of spending. So when those are co-occurring with a primary care issue, say somebody has diabetes or somebody has a heart condition, if you have a co-occurring mental health like depression with your heart condition, it drives the cost of care up because of the challenges people face. In diabetes, it may be getting the help they need, but it's related to the stigma that these issues. We talk about illnesses from the shoulders up differently than we talk about illnesses from the shoulders down. If I have diabetes, you don't look at me any differently. But if I have a mental health issue or schizophrenia, you look at me differently and wonder, and people don't understand that. So these are very important in terms of the cost of care and also in helping people deal with their primary care issues and getting, in terms of driving cost of care down and helping them stay in school, stay in their jobs, and function in the community productively.
There seems like there's a really big focus on changing lives.
Correct. Yes. Our mission statement is delivering care that changes people's lives. And so what we talk about at Centerstone is what is John Markley's role as CEO in delivering care that changes people's lives? What is the person who you picks up the phone when you call in to schedule an appointment? What's their role in that? What is the person who cleans the buildings? What's their role in that? We talk a lot about our mission statement because we're very engaged in the mission statement, and we believe that if everybody understands their role in that, we will be very effective and not dysfunctional in delivering the care that changes people's lives.
And Centerstone is diversifying its services and the resources it provides the local community thanks to some big grants that you've received recently.
Correct, yes. This year, especially since July, we've received about $15 million on an annual basis in grants. And so we're in the process. It's demanding a lot of our resources for implementation, and it's also demanding a lot of our resources in getting these programs up and running by hopefully January. Many of them will be up and running, but having this all at once has really been taxing, if you will, on the staff. And then also getting staff hired. We're looking probably at hiring about 50 to 60 staff, along with some of the grants and contracts that we've received since July 1st.
And why is this grant money so important?
So what grant money is about, if many people that get grants or understand grants, is that's usually for a period of time. And many of the federal grants are for 3 or 5 years or even sometimes 2 years. And what we're using those funds for and those resources for is we're identifying solutions to problems that exist for our communities. So we typically get paid from the state from managed care organizations, and they are looking at groups of individuals that are driving costs up, that are in the hospitals and going to the emergency rooms, which is not a good approach to care. They're looking at those and saying, wow, what can we do to help these people and help them live in the community where they're not, first of all, in a practical way, not using all the financial resources to get health care and getting health care in the wrong places. That's really not helping them. So we take an opportunity with the grants is to identify solutions and then take those solutions to managed care organizations and say, hey, this problem that you're having with youth who are working with, who are being displaced, and it's costing you a lot of money, and they're not getting the care they need. We figured out a solution through this grant process that we think can help you. Would you be interested beyond a grant period in helping us solve that problem? And many times they're very responsive to that. So we use these resources to identify solutions to problems that we're incurring in our communities.
And what would you say some of the big problems are currently in our local communities?
So access to care is a big issue. And so one of the grants that we've received is getting access to care. There are oftentimes barriers, not only for adults but for children. We have a planning grant that we've received from the Illinois Children's Healthcare Foundation, and that planning grant puts Southern Illinois Healthcare, puts Southern Illinois University, puts the Jackson County Health Department, puts family and friends and community and groups together, and they're looking at what are the barriers to care, what are things that maybe the individuals aren't aware of that are out there for access to care that they can get. And so we're even talking in that process of having family navigators, so that people, when they're in the school systems, are aware of these things, the hospitals are aware of these things, the behavioral health care system is aware of these things, the primary care systems are aware of these things, all of these sort of things that we're looking at this and seeing how do we remove the barriers so that people, when your child or my child needs help, I became aware of this and now I can get that help. It's oftentimes they're just not aware of it, and then sometimes there's financial barriers, and sometimes there's stigma related to, I don't want to diagnose and have my child labeled as somebody with a mental health issue. So talking and educating about those things is really important, and some of these resources are addressing those significant issues and will help people get better. And over the span of their life, the earlier that we address these issues, the less in terms of cost of care and the less in terms of intensity of care they need.
And if you had to kind of highlight some of your big grants, what would they be?
So that's easy. We had what we received just this year, CCBHC. It's called Certified Community Behavioral Health Care. community center. And so certified community behavioral health is something that only about 30 agencies around the country are receiving. And really that grant is focusing on access to care and removing the barriers to care, so that when people walk through our facility, they understand what they need, where they can get care, what kind of care they can get, those sort of things. It also looks at people that need substance abuse treatment that oftentimes isn't available and sometimes in communities, or difficult to get because of financial barriers that are there. It also addresses integrated care. So when you walk in, or an individual that we know walks in, that we become aware that maybe they need to have their vitals checked. Maybe they're in terms of their heart, that they have a diabetes or something like that. But doing all of that in a one-stop shop, because oftentimes people are making and taking off of work and getting rides to these things and having difficulty getting to their primary care doctor, and then also getting to a behavioral health appointment. So we're doing this all at one site. In addition to that, the focus of the CCBHC is to have data-driven decisions made. So we have in front of us the information about John Markley and John Markley's primary care issues and the medications he's taking. So I'll know when I have prescribed medications, I'll know and understand how this will work with John's current medication. Oftentimes we didn't know that in the past, and oftentimes still agencies don't know that. This is going to provide an opportunity for have that information in front of us, and so to give better care and to give care more expediently, and that will also help them get better faster. So we're really excited about the CCBHC. It's a $2 million grant, and the very exciting thing about for community mental health centers like our own, it's cost reimbursed. We are not cost reimbursed right now. We get funds from the state grant level, but they don't go back and say what were your costs there and make sure you're covered on that. The very significant issue with the CCBHC is they go back, they review our costs, and we're reimbursed for all of the costs that we put into that. So there's no incentive on our part to not to give the care that's needed. And the hope is that greater access, integrated care, all of these sort of things will help people get the help they need, therefore driving down the cost of care overall with the individuals and the communities we serve.
And potentially you could probably help more people in the local community as well.
It is one of the intentions of the grant is to create greater access. And what we're seeing around the country with these 30 individuals and 30 community mental health centers that have received this is they're serving about 50 to 80% more people than they have in previous years. So it's a very exciting opportunity for community mental health centers like our own. And what this is a pilot. It's a 2-year pilot, and if it's successful, it'll either be ongoing funds would be supported by federal or state resources, and it would change the healthcare, and it would expand over all of our footprint in Illinois, which is a very exciting thing.
Right, and in addition to this particular grant, are there other grants that the organization is currently working on?
So in terms of application, I got to tell you, I think my staff will put me in a closet and lock me up if they start working on anything else beyond what we have on our table. But since we have the 6 different grants that we are working on. I mentioned the Illinois Children's Healthcare Foundation. That is a planning grant. It's a 13-month planning grant, $200,000, and those groups are coming together. The opportunity there and the effort will be to make that successful, so that will bring an ongoing grant for systems for youth that need care and developing systems for youth that need care to get the help for them when they need it. And so that would probably be, when you talk about what's on the horizon, the Illinois Children's Healthcare Foundation is very invested in us being successful in that, and the teams that we're working with. That's not just a Centerstone thing. That's the agencies that I talked about earlier. And that's what I love about this. It's a community grant, and we're just part of it, and we're working with the Illinois Children's Healthcare Foundation to make it successful. And it'll affect all of the communities here in Southern Illinois. So that's a wonderful thing.
And it's nice to have these resources even in small communities like Carbondale, like Marion, like some of the other surrounding communities. If someone is listening this morning and something has really stood out to them, how can they get in touch with you folks at Centerstone?
So Centerstone.org is the best place, and choosing Illinois sites for services, and you can call in, and we have open access. So if somebody is on Medicaid and needs services today, they can walk into any one of our offices and get help. in one of those offices and open. If you have insurance, it sometimes takes time to verification of insurance, but we try to get people in as quickly as possible, because that is something that we measure ourselves in terms of metrics, because the quicker you get people in, the more likely they are not only to get help, but to stay engaged in help. And the better the outcomes in terms of their regimen of services that they receive, the impact on their lives. So I would encourage people, if they know someone or if somebody is needing help, to certainly call and to talk with one of our people and take that opportunity to do it as quickly as possible. Don't wait, because oftentimes we have people that regret that they waited so long, and sometimes the stigma is something that stays in front of people and makes it difficult for them to ask for help. But I would encourage you that much more detrimental to the individuals you're talking about is the wait on getting help rather than the stigma of getting help and having somebody labeled. Certainly, it's we are working with individuals, and just because we're people and we're full of flaws, people get sick in different ways, and this is an opportunity, and we're here to help.
And one thing we mentioned earlier in the interview is taking care of it at a young age. So if you struggle with a mental illness, during your middle school and high school days, to get treatment early on to kind of put a stop to it.
Right. Yeah, we're in many of the schools. We're in 45 different schools in Illinois. And so there's help within the schools that we work with the school systems very closely and helping them keep the kids in school and keeping kids operating and functioning. And that's really very, very important, because not just getting the help, but having their families around them, having the institutions like the schools and the support of that, that is much more in terms of the results and the outcomes we get. We get much more positive outcomes when that happens that way, as opposed to taking a kid and placing them in a hospital somewhere where they're not supported by their groups that are around them.
Absolutely. It sounds like 2018 was a good year for things at Centerstone, and moving forward to 2019, expect pretty big things coming from you guys.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, John Markley with Centerstone and Dallas Benavides. It's been a pleasure, and that's all the time we have for today. We hope you'll listen to us next Monday here on Talk of the Town on WDBX. Have a wonderful day.